Chapter 30. Corin leaned against the body of the simulator and gave Wedge a weak smile. We got it that time, boss, but only just barely. That last cut is very sharp. Banking is the only way to make it, but leveling out for the torpedo shot is tough. The junior officer nodded. The one time he had tried to make the last run to the target by applying rudder and skidding around the turn, his X-wing slammed into a canyon wall. Making that turn and escaping a crash required very fine manipulation of the throttle. He could do that. By the time he had negotiated the turn and recovered, he was past his target. I like the idea of popping up over the last turn and gliding on down in, but that might attract some of the ties the Bacta boy is lighting up. I agree that going up and out of the valley to avoid that last turn is probably the most simple way of handling the problem, but we go in first to provide the data for others to make their runs. Mr. Jace and Mr. Venn will decide if they want to hop past the last turn or go through the valley. Brewer Jace came out from around the corner of Corin's simulator with his wingman. Valley, I think, unless our fuel estimates are lower than expected because of dogfighting. Corin winked at him. Don't worry. We'll keep them off you while you squirm your way into the tunnel. I'll do the job. The Twi'lek laid a hand on Brewer's shoulder. We'll do the job. Wedge smiled. Only because our near misses will weaken the structure for you. Of course, Commander. Brewer looked at Corin. Even clean misses must atomize air and do some harm. The Corellian lieutenant levered himself away from the simulator. Last I looked, I've hit more targets than you. Gavin and Rysati joined the group. If not for me not holding my end up, Corin would be winning your contest, Brewer. The Thefarin waved the comment away. Corin has one more kill than I do. If this simulation isn't all accurate, I will eclipse his mark by 3 kills. So it's just you and me, head to head? Brewer looked down at Corin. Just you and me, head to head, as it has always been. Wedge stepped between them. At ease, gentlemen. Let me remind you of 2 things. First, Gavin's got the best record for hitting the tunnel, which means the second flight didn't do so well. Second, that tunnel is our target, not all the eyeballs and squints flying around. He rested a hand on each man's shoulder. I've not discouraged this contest because there's no way to stop you from keeping score. It's given you a competitive edge, which is good. Neither of you has allowed the other to become complacent or bored. A bored pilot gets overconfident, careless, and rather quickly dead. And in spite of planning and promoting this difficult mission, I don't want to see any of us die. Wedge took a step back and folded his arms. For the barest of moments, he looked far older than his 27 years. Corin saw the weariness as Death's fingerprints. Death's never gotten Wedge, but it's been close enough to leave marks on him. There's undoubtedly a nightmare for every pilot Rogue Squadron has lost, and I bet he runs through them far more regularly than he'd like. The squadron commander forced a smile onto his face. Back when I first welcomed you to this squadron, I told you that most pilots die during their first 5 missions. We were very lucky in our first 3, but it all caught up with us on the run at Black Moon. Looking at the numbers, there's no reason to assume it will get any better for us this time. Corin nodded and fought the shiver coursing up his spine. In the first run, they'd had 11 ships to take against Black Moon's fighters. They engaged 2 squadrons then, and would likely face that much opposition this time. While the best pilots in Rogue Squadron were going in on the mission, fuel considerations limited their ability to perform. I want you people to know I've flown with the best the Alliance has to offer. Luke, Biggs, Porkins, Jansen, Tycho, all of them. I don't feel their lack here. This isn't a Death Star we're going after, and this mission doesn't have that sense of urgency. That's because back then we were fighting for the very survival of the rebellion. The fact is, though, this mission is just as important as either of the Death Star runs. Wedge glanced down at his hands, then back up. This time we're fighting for the future of the rebellion and all the people who want freedom from the Empire. That's a lot less immediate than when we fought for in the old days, but in many ways it's far more noble a goal. Corin smiled in spite of himself. The nagging sense of doubt and doom that had been grinding away at his consciousness didn't go away, but it became muted. Wedge's words muffled it. Fear and insecurity were issues about himself, but their mission was about others. He was going off to make the future a bit brighter for people like Ayala Wasiri and her husband, and Gus Bastra and his family, and even folks like Booster Terek. The realization that this blow struck at the Empire would make life easier for the sorts of criminals he and his father and grandfather used to hunt didn't tarnish the mission. He'd never believed the virtuous bandit myth most criminals like to wrap around themselves. Raiding the affluent to give to the destitute was a pattern often claimed, but he'd seen no evidence of it. Still, he couldn't deny the contribution of folks like Han Solo or Mirex Terek to the rebellion. And how could one compare the minor evil of a hut with the grand evil of a government that would conceive of, build, and utilize weapons that could destroy planets? If we cap the wellspring of evil, cleaning up all the little puddles it leaves behind will be that much easier. Wedge looked at all of the pilots. This mission isn't going to be easy, but I know we can do it. Corin nodded to him. If it was easy, it wouldn't be a Rogue Squadron mission. And if it wasn't given to Rogue Squadron, Brewer added, it would have no chance of being accomplished. If Ego could power shields, you'd be invincible. Wedge shook his head. You've got 12 hours to kill before you hit the line. No drinking, and definitely get some sleep. You can't use the holonet for obvious security reasons, but if you want to record some messages for friends and family and leave them with M-Tray, he'll see to their disposition in the worst case. Get going. I'll see you at 0800 on the line. We'll be there, Commander. Corin tossed him a quick salute. Nervous as Sith spawn in the glow of a Jedi's lightsaber, but ready for whatever the Empire throws at us. Wedge watched his pilots walk away and saw both Shael and Arisi catch up with them. He turned and smiled at Tycho. Nice flying in the sim. You wouldn't have bagged me if that belly pod hadn't slowed my climb. The Alderaanian pilot shrugged. Fifth time's the charm. Wedge pointed towards the retreating knot of pilots. Do they ever seem like kids to you? Kids who shouldn't be in this at all? Gavin, yes, and Oral because of the insular life he's led. The rest of them only surrender a year or two to us. I know that, but it seems like the Emperor's death was the end of an era. They've all joined after the new republic was established. Before that, we were outlaws fighting the legitimate government. Now we're a movement that's bringing freedom to countless worlds. Wedge shook his head. Sometimes I think they've joined us because of the romance of the rebellion's having struck a blow against the Empire. We brought down Darth Vader, killed the Emperor, and destroyed the Death Stars. Tycho brushed a lock of brown hair from his forehead. I hope you're not heading towards the idea that they don't really know what they're getting into. I seem to recall hearing that same speculation about the pilots in the squadron before Endor. Back then, you saw the destruction of the first Death Star as what marked the end of an epoch. Wedge had memories flood back. Yeah, I guess I did think about that then, didn't I? The situation was different, though. No, it wasn't. Look, Wedge, none of us have been through all you have. I joined up after Yavin, so I've been here for a long time. But for me, Biggs and Porkins and the others are just legends. For you, they're memories. Friends you've lost. Tycho threw an arm across Wedge's shoulders. These guys have lost friends, too. There's not a one of them that doesn't know the odds of surviving this run are about. Wedge held up a hand. Don't give me the odds. You know Corellians have no tolerance for odds. Which is why you so willingly play Sabacc. And why so many of us are part of the rebellion. The two of them laughed aloud, and Wedge felt a lot of his tension bleeding away. As he wiped tears from his eyes, he saw an Alliance security lieutenant come walking over. Yes, Lieutenant. Forgive the intrusion, sir, but I just wanted to remind Captain Selchu this area is restricted when he's not actually involved in an exercise. That's all right, Lieutenant. He's with me. Yes, sir. She glanced anxiously back towards the doorway. I'll wait out there. I'll be along presently, Lieutenant. Wedge frowned. I'll take responsibility for Captain Selchu, Lieutenant. You're dismissed. Sir, my orders came from General Sam. I know. Log your protest with him. Yes, sir. Wedge looked over and saw a frown on Tycho's face. What's the matter? He glanced at the security officer's retreating form, then back at his friend. Have you become involved with her? Did I break something up here? Tycho shook his head. No, nothing like that. She's very nice and lived on Alderaan for several years, so we can talk about places we'll never see again. And she works with two enlisted men, one of whom watches me all the time. I do find her intriguing, but I'm not of a mind to begin a new relationship without knowing if the old one is over or not. I can understand that. Wedge recalled the woman Tycho had fallen for a couple of years earlier. She worked in Alliance procurement and supply and spent most of her time on covert missions directing operations on enemy worlds designed to liberate materials from the Empire. Because of the importance and sensitivity of her work, learning anything about her from intelligence was impossible, and Tycho's status raised that difficulty level by an order of magnitude. Tycho poked a finger against Wedge's breastbone. I think you're changing the subject on me to avoid the real issue that prompted your earlier question. Wedge raised an eyebrow. Oh? And that is? You're afraid you're getting too old for what we've always told ourselves is a young man's game. If you think that, you're as confused as a Gamorrean placed between two full mugs of lum. The Corellian frowned. First off, you're a year older than I am. 9 months, which is rather close to a year, my friend. True enough, but years aren't the only measure of time. Tycho tapped the rank insignia at the collar of Wedge's flight suit. You're a commander. Luke was a general before he abandoned his rank. Han Solo and Lando Calrissian are generals. Most of the officers who have been with the Alliance for as long as you have are at least colonels. You're only a captain, Tycho. And there I'll stay if Sam has anything to say about it. Well, I've had my say about my rank, and I'm happy where I am. I like leading a squadron. I know that. The Alderanian shrugged and folded his arms. You can't help but wonder, though, if refusing those promotions was the right decision to make or not. True. Wedge looked up at his friend. So, am I too old to be doing this? Wedge, over the last 4 months I've flown against and shot down every one of the kids you have going on this mission. So have you. Tycho let a low chuckle rumble from his throat. If you're too old for this, the New Republic might as well give up now. Barring a squadron of Jedi Knights winging their way in here, you're the best we've got. That may not impress you, but there are plenty of imp pilots out there who don't sleep the whole night through because of dreams about you being on their tails. And that's the end of the chapter. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.